Hello and welcome to another Andy's FPL Apprentice video. It's our team selection video ahead of Game Week 14. So we'll take you through how we did for Game Week 13, my team and Will's wildcard team, and then we'll have a look at our transfer plans, who we're looking at picking and benching, and captaincy options ahead of Game Week 14. If you enjoyed the video, then please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let us know what you think of our transfer plans, and we'll jump straight into the video. I'm joined, as always, by Will. How you doing, Chief?
Very good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I am not bad, thank you.
Excellent.
So Game Week 13, a weird one, to be honest, because I didn't think it was a very good week, but like nobody had an especially good week, so I just think there was so many like highly owned players that got absolutely nothing. Like all the kind of highly owned midfielders got absolutely nothing. So
Yep.
So I ended up with 59 points, which was not too bad a score. It also gave me a slight green arrow up to 470, literally a tiny green arrow, but it's still nice to see the green arrows coming in. Pope, it's been a mixed bag, the odd Pope Trippier double up. I sort of wish I hadn't done it. I was I was watching a bit of the Tottenham game, and I was such swings and roundabouts. It took my clean sheet off me, but I've got Kane, so I was like, well, at least Kane's got me some points. So 2 for Trippier, 2 for Cancelo. We were at the City match, and obviously just delighted to see any sort of points there, because it really wasn't a good City performance.
It was not.
Ben White, a little bbit lucky on that one because I was bringing in an Arsenal defender for the clean sheet. Obviously, that got wiped, but it was, it was nice. They got a cheeky assist, and then nothing across the midfield. Obviously, I said in the last video about Foden how he's not a rotation risk. He started every game this season. He gets taken off after 60 minutes to try and manage his time sometimes. And not for the first time this season I've made a decision based on that, which is, I still think, very sound logic. Obviously, Pep watches the videos and thought, screw you, I'm giving Foden his benching, so he came on for a Warner. And then, forward line, really came through for me. 2 goals for Haaland, captaincy. I feel bad for anyone who captained Salah. I told you I probably would have done if I owned him. But, those things don't pan out sometimes. Mitrovic and Kane a goal apiece, so, yeah, solid. Disappointed to have Andreas on the bench, but at some point I need to start thinking about starting him because he's been consistently good, really. But he was never in my thinking. He wasn't even my first sub, so I can't feel too disappointed about that.
Yeah. So my week was fairly similar. I had a slightly less good 55 points. Remained above average, but it's an overall red arrow for me. I'm at 446 now. Dropped a little bit. I finally made the right keeper decision. Ward got 8 points and Sanchez got 1, and that was enough to just make this week feel satisfying.
Absolutely.
I also had Cancelo, Trippier, and Ben White. I'm a big fan of Ben White for 4.5 million. Not only is he in a good team who are not conceding huge amounts of goals, but he does pop up with the odd assist, so I think he is a bargain. Of course, I had a very similar midfield. I was super disappointed Foden came on for 1 point because Almiron was my first substitute who scored 10 points on the bench. I was never going to pick him over Foden. It was between him and Eze, and obviously that was the mistake. But even so, when Foden wasn't playing, I was hoping that he might not come on at all. I also had Haaland, and thank goodness I did. He made up just under half of my points total for the week. And Tony and Jesus did nothing on this occasion. 2 points apiece.
I think that's it. I think our teams are at the moment looking unusually similar. But I think it's because I sort of decided that I might be a bit weaker in the last couple of weeks, but I wanted to set myself up for the next little run before the World Cup, and so what that's done is that I've ended up with my team being closer to what a wildcard team I think would look like anyway. But but yeah, the strikers. I'm not sure I would have Mitrovic if I was wildcarding, and yeah, he's scored in the last 2 game weeks.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I picked Mitrovic as the make weight for Jesus, and it was a bit of a toss-up between him and Tony. And so far, Mitrovic has done better, but I'm not ready to give up on Tony just yet.
No, I don't think you should. I think Jesus as well. I watched the second half of that Arsenal-Southampton game, and Arsenal were apparently really good in the first half, which I didn't see, and had chances and should have been more than one ahead. Second half, Southampton were really good. Like Arsenal just looked a bit leggy. Like Arteta hasn't gone into the Europa League with a completely changed team. Like Saka played 90 minutes. I think I mentioned it last week. Saka played 90 minutes. Martinelli's got a lot of minutes in the Europa League, and Jesus played as well. And I don't know that he trusts the rest of his squad quite enough. Yeah, so I think that is one thing to kind of keep an eye on. That said, I'm not 100% sold on this as a transfer plan for next week, but the most likely change that I'm going to do is Bowen to Saka. And the only thing that was always my plan was always to get Saka in this week. It was Foden, an Arsenal defender, last week, and then another Arsenal attacker this week, and it could be Saka or possibly Jesus, or it could have been for Zaha as well instead of Bowen. But Bowen I've been pretty pleased with since I brought him in. He's kind of chipped in well with points, but after his penalty miss, after this, he missed a penalty in the previous game week. West Ham actually got one, but it'd been taken off like a minute earlier, so I wasn't sure whether he would have taken it or not, but they asked Bowen, post-match, so, would you have taken the penalty if you'd been on the pitch? Bowen just said, God, no, I'm off penalties for a while now. And yeah, I think I've been a little bit lucky with the points I've got with Bowen. He's had a penalty in there. He got an assist from a scuff shot that somebody else turned in. It's great. I'm not complaining about the points. And I put Bowen in because his fixtures were really good, but I don't think he's justifying the price. I've seen a lot of people selling Zaha at the minute, and I think that's kind of mad. I just said how well I thought Southampton played second half against Arsenal, but I still think it's a very gettable at defence. Zaha was man of the match. He did nothing this week, but he was man of the match the week before. I'm not suddenly rushing to get rid of Zaha. So I think almost certainly Bowen out, and I just can't find a better option. I have considered Almiron, but I find it hard to bring in players who keep scoring worldies.
Yeah, it does seem unsustainable.
Yeah, he's not someone I think gets loads of chances, and he's playing really well. But from an FPL point of view, he doesn't have massive amounts of touches in the box. He plays quite wide a lot of the time, but he keeps. His goal against Tottenham was stunning, real tight angle, beats his man all end up, and tight angle past Lloris. He scored the one the other week where it was a cut inside from the right and curled it top bins from 25 yards out.
Yeah.
I don't hate him as a pick at all, and also I don't need to save the money. I've got money in the bank at the minute. I don't know where to spend it, so it doesn't. It just doesn't. Saka looks like a more convincing bet, I think.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair between the two. I'm hoping to get a bit of a gross out of Almiron. Strike while the iron's hot, soak up some points, maybe improves in value, and then perhaps switch out for a more consistent player later on. But
I can't imagine having him on a wild card after the World Cup. But he's on such a hot streak that I can see the argument of saying just bring him in. He's for 3 weeks. He's on such a hot streak. Bring him in for 3 weeks, and
See what he does.
Yeah. I do have some thoughts on that, but first of all, what are your transfer plans for next week?
Well, having just done my wildcard, absolutely none at this stage. I'm sticking with my team, despite them being a low scorer. That was true for everybody, and I'm still convinced that most of these players will be good point scorers in the games to come, particularly next week. I look at my team, and most of my players are playing sort of bottom half clubs, and clubs that have shipped a lot of goals. So, hoping for a better upturn this week.
You making any changes to your starting lineup? I'm going to take a guess that you may be looking at getting Almiron into the first 11.
Yeah, I brought Almiron on for Eze. As you mentioned, Southampton did play quite well against Arsenal, and so both of my Palace players are on the bench. I look across the back line. I've got Cancelo, Trippier, and White, and respectively are playing Leicester, Villa, and Nottingham Forest. And Leicester's not necessarily the easiest game, but Cancelo's quite difficult to take out because when he has a good day, there's a lot of potential in him. But Villa and Forest seem pretty gettable for the back line.
Yeah, Villa are a funny one because what have they scored? About 5 goals all season, then sacked Gerrard and scored 4 in the first half hour. It just
Hopefully that's just beginner's luck.
I agree. I think Villa are a targetable team. I'm probably going to need more than 1 week to convince me out of that. I'm looking at making no changes to my team. If Bowen is the one to leave, and I think that's 95% going to happen unless I hear any injury news. It'll be the same starting 11 with whoever I bring in for Bowen. Again, probably Saka being the only change there. So I agree with you. I don't think you necessarily need to make changes because you've just wildcarded, but I'm not like an overly aggressive manager usually, but I think at certain points of the season it's really good to be like risky and sort of aggressive with your punts. 3 weeks before everybody has basically a wild card, it seems like the perfect time to do it. Because if they don't pay off, you can take those players out. You're not suddenly stuck with players that you need to get rid of that are really punty. I would love to do it in midfield and do it this week, but I can't. Almiron's the only one I'm half tempted by, and I'm not entirely convinced enough about it. It puts me off as well that I don't mind taking Bowen out for somebody like for someone like Saka, but their last 2 fixtures for West Ham are really good, and to take Bowen out for someone that I'm not sure of when Bowen actually has good fixtures puts me off it. I am looking at next week probably getting rid of Mitrovic, who has United and City, Manchester that is, in their last 2. And I'm really tempted to get Calvert-Lewin in.
He's been scoring.
Well, he scored last week. I think it was. I mean, he's barely played. He's been injured for almost 18 months. Like he came back, played a couple of games, got injured again, and this time when he's come back, they really, really eased him back into the team. But I imagine he's back on penalties. I imagine he'll be starting. He's a much better player than Mopé, but he is. Everton's fixtures are great. They've been playing pretty well anyway, and I just I like the look of him. Just having a punt on him for 2 weeks because nobody owns him. So
and if you get it right.
Yeah, and I'm just not convinced that Mitrovic is going to score big. But you might pop up with the odd goal in those 2 games, a goal maybe, sort of best case scenario. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And so I kind of agree with you for not making any changes, but I think if you've got any wild punts that you're thinking of, now is the time to do it. Just be like, it's like 2 weeks. You got yourself a free.
You can reset.
So last one then is captaincy for next week. Now Haaland is currently yellow flagged.
Yeah, 75% chance of playing with a knock, conspicuously. Of course, I've left in captain. So the real question is, who's the vice captain, just in case he doesn't play? He's not been sort of babied as I think we probably expected he would be before the start of the season.
Agreed, yeah.
So I kind of expect that if he is fit enough, he'll simply play. I don't think he'll be rested out of sort of risk management. So I think he remains my captain, and the question falls to who am I going to stick vice captain on, just on the outside chance he doesn't play. I've currently got it on Salah, who have Leeds, which seems like a pretty solid bet.
It's the same as last week, really. I did look. That's a great fixture. Leeds have been terrible, like the last few weeks. They're not won in 5, something like that. They're like defensively don't look kind of cohesive at the moment. I don't actually think they're playing that badly. I'd like to sort of a bit of a Jesse Marsh defender. I think considering they lost their best 2 players as well in the summer, I think they've recruited well, and I think they look good, but I haven't quite got the results to match it. But I still think like Salah's a great captaincy option this week. And yeah, it's hard to argue. Like Brighton are a better team than Leicester are, even though Leicester have been improved the last few weeks. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to captain Haaland against Brighton, you've definitely got to captain him against Leicester for me.
Yeah. I still haven't seen any reason to move off him. He's consistent almost every game, and that's just not an exaggeration. So it pays dividends. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'll wait. I don't know. Seeing it's just tempting with like Martinelli at Forest is also, or Jesus against Forest is also like a tempter. But one's as good as another. I think it's who's going to do best is anybody's guess.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to still leave it on Kane because he's just been ridiculously consistent in a Tottenham team that isn't playing very well either. I don't think the last few weeks, but it's they're away to Bournemouth, and again Bournemouth have been improved. I think there's quite a few teams that started the season badly and have looked a little better recently, and that's why teams like Villa and Leeds are getting dragged in, like back towards the bottom, is because and Wolves is because some of these teams around the bottom have really seemed to have stepped it up. But
yeah,
Kane's been so consistent. I don't think I can take the vice captaincy off. And I agree with you. Like, I actually think that it's a kind of classic Pep thing where you sort of take what he says with a little bit of a pinch of salt. He said that Cancelo and Haaland had both had a bit of a. He said they had a bit of a fever, a bit of a virus, and that also Haaland had taken a little bit of a kick in the foot.
Mm-hmm.
Like the virus thing is nothing. Like there'll be. Not that I don't believe it. I just mean you don't. If he was well enough to play on a Tuesday, he's not going to still be suffering. He's not going to be suffering worse with it by Saturday.
Absolutely.
And yeah, a little kick, that doesn't sound like something that's going to keep him out. And if he is genuinely out, I don't think he's the sort of player that you put on the bench and take a risk on. Got more important games, so I think
you're not playing him.
Absolutely. So, and I'm going. Pereira will be boosted up to first sub for me because he's been playing so well recently. But the fixture, I can't justify dropping anybody else. So if Haaland doesn't play, I'm quite happy for Andreas Pereira to come in. Everybody owns Haaland, so everybody will be in the same boat anyway.
Yeah. I did start thinking, should I use my bench boost this week? I've got 2 Palace players against Southampton, Ben Mee against Wolves. The tricky one is hopefully Ward isn't going to do very well against City.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not a bad spread of players who are likely to all play as well.
I don't have a... So, my free hit I'll definitely be saving for, either a double game week or a game week where there's, no players. You sort of either... I try and decide in advance, basically. I'll try and build my team towards one of those. The bench boost, I think, the best time to use it is pretty soon after you've wildcarded, because you will always have. It's very rare that you'll do a wildcard team with players that aren't playing.
Yeah.
Like you'll pad out your team with the cheapest playing options. Like, why would you bring in a £4 million defender who never plays when there's probably one at 4.1 who plays? So you just put them on your bench. So the best time to use it, I say, is like immediately after a wildcard. So it's not a bad plan, but yeah, you're right. The keeper thing will put me off. Like I prefer to use it when you've got really strong, goalkeeper options. The other one is whether there's going to be a double game week for almost everybody. I don't know. I haven't looked into this, so I don't know. But everybody's got a fixture to play. Like some teams have two, but everybody has an extra fixture now. So if they put all of that into, like, if everybody has a double game week in one game week, then it means all of your bench will have a double game week as well. So that would be the obvious time to bench boost, because you'll literally have, 15 players who are all playing twice.
Looks worth looking out for.
Yeah, but that's I've no idea whether that'll happen or not, because I've not looked into it. I don't know if there's an entire free midweek game week where they can put that in. There probably isn't, so it probably will just end up being random fixtures dotted about wherever they can. So yeah, I'm not going to put you off that. I think it's a good time to use it, but there's small potential there might be a better time.
Yeah. Well, I'll have a think on it and see if there's any further injuries come up before the game week starts.
Yeah. Oh, that's it for our team selection video ahead of game week 14. If you enjoyed the video, find anything useful in it, then please give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel. We massively appreciate it when you guys do that. It's nice to see the views going up. It'd be lovely to see a few more subscribers as well. It's hugely appreciated. And that's it for this week. Keep an eye out for next week's video, where we'll have another team selection and show you how we did on game week 14.